Hello everyone, back tuning into today's video doing JMA Friday today, having a detailed look ahead with the Japanese and CFS V2 models for the next month. So it's going to take us into October, can you believe? We'll be going into the second month of the autumn, although we haven't had any autumn yet. It's just been a continuation of summer, although it will feel quite a bit cooler and quite wet actually down across England and Wales tomorrow. But after that, it looks like warm coming back again early next week. But anyway, we're going off into October with this update. So we'll have a look at the Japanese and CFS V2 models in a moment. Before I get on with that though, just to say about the ads, there's links to articles on all the pages. Have a browse through widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. Thanks so much for doing that. There's video ads on most pages which open up content. When you watch them, they close back up again. It does help to pay for GavsworthVids.com. So we'll start with JMA and we'll have a look at CFS V2, break it down into week periods. But first week period will take us from a week that we're currently in, the 9th through to the 16th of September. As you know, these charts, yellow and red, orange, bright colours always extrapolate to high pressure, and blue extrapolates to low pressure. So for the coming week, we find we've got a trough of low pressure in the Atlantic, and then we've got a ridge out to the east of the country. So the Atlantic is breaking the ridge down a little bit through this week, but the jet stream's still doing something rather like that. So it does still more or less place us on the warm side of the jet, and over time we're probably bringing up into next week increasingly southerly influences again. So that's going to be pretty warm. Could be more unsettled than we've been used to, but temperatures still remaining quite a bit above average, especially as we go through into next week. Week 2, which is the 16th through 23rd of September, looks like this. Again, we've got trough of low pressure out to the west of us. A ridge is down to the south and also to the southeast of the country. So it's still the same situation, really. The jet stream coming through and then it runs north like that, and still generally bringing up quite warm air from the south with this weather pattern. We will be seeing temperatures above average. It is more unsettled, particularly to the north and west of the country, but the main thing I think is that the temperature probably still remain quite warm there as we're going through into the middle part of September. And then we get through to weeks 3 and weeks 4, which takes us from the 23rd of September through the 7th of October. A little bit of a change in this week. Above average heights generally becoming centred to the west-northwest of the country, which pushes the trough further back into the Atlantic. Quite settled, but it is a change in the flow, in that I think we're doing something like that. And I would suspect this is cooler. We're bringing in cooler air around the top of this ridge from a northeasterly direction, perhaps. So quite a lot of dry weather still going through to the second half of September and start of October, but I will think it's a cooler position for that ridge. So that will probably be the onset of autumn, particularly at night. I think it will be turning a bit cooler there, but still quite a lot of dry weather. Let's have a look at the temperature precipitation anomalies then. We'll have a look at the mid-latitude and tropical view. Again, these are broken down into week periods. The British Isles is just here in the far top right-hand corner of the chart as you are looking at it. So a reminder of what we've got in terms of the 500 millibar height anomaly for the coming week. We've got the trough of low pressure in the Atlantic. Then we've got the ridge over here out to the east of us, and it means that the flow is generally southerly to southeasterly. Temperature anomalies, therefore, are coming out significantly warmer than average again through the course of the coming week. Remember, this is the 9th through 16th of September. The scale is on the bottom of the chart, so around 1-2 degrees above average again for the anomaly over the week ahead. Precipitation is greater than we've been used to, so it's a wetter week, especially to the north and west, but actually all parts of the country coming out a little bit wetter than average. That might be a bit over the top, actually. I'm not sure it's going to be quite that wet, but it is a more unsettled week, certainly, for the coming week. We go through to week 2, which is the 16th through 23rd of September, and again, it's a very similar pattern. We've got low pressure out to the northwest, we've got a ridge down to the south, and it's also to the east and southeast of the country. Expect quite a warm week there. Again, temperature anomalies are coming out above average. Not quite as great an anomaly as we have for the coming week, but still generally above average with the temperatures. Precipitation, bit wetter than average up in the north, but slightly drier than average down in the south. So the more unsettled conditions are being pushed up towards the north and the west, with the south and the east tending to be a bit drier. And then weeks 3 and 4, which is 23rd of September through to 7th of October, what happens with this week is that the ridge, or these couple of weeks, is that the ridge is more to the west, northwest country, which I would have thought probably does something like that. It is a bit of a change in the pattern there, which I would have thought is a bit cooler. Now, the temperature anomaly is still coming out ever so slightly above average, but over time, that anomaly is reducing. So I think it is turning a little bit cooler there as we get through to the end of September and the start of October. Also going more or less drier than average as well. So we end September, we start October on a much drier note, but also a little bit cooler, and I would think that would be particularly evident at night. Let's have a look at CFS V2 and see how that's looking. So again, by the middle of our heights, break it down into week periods. The first week period takes us from the 9th through to 15th of September. Green, blue extrapolates to low pressure, red, orange extrapolates to high pressure. So for the coming week, very similar to the JMA, we've got the trough of low pressure in the Atlantic, we've got the ridge out to the east and the northeast of the country. The flow is doing something like that. So again, we're pulling up southerly influences, quite warm air coming in from the south, but the trough in the Atlantic is bringing more unsettled conditions, particularly, but not exclusively, to the north and west of the country. Week 2, 16th through 22nd of September, very similar to what the JMA is doing as well. We've got the trough to the northwest, we've got the ridge down to the south. Perhaps a little bit more unsettled here than the JMA. The jet stream is coming through the country a bit like that. So it might be a little bit cooler and a little bit more unsettled actually for week 2 compared to the JMA. It is quite a similar setup. Week 3, which is the 23rd to 29th of September. Now, this is when the JMA is building a ridge around the country, slightly to the west-northwest. The CFS actually placing a trough of low pressure more or less over the centre of the country. So this is much more unsettled compared to the JMA. The ridge is out to the southwest and towards the north of Scandinavia. So this is a lot more unsettled actually through week 3 going to the end of September. Will be quite cool as well, the way the trough and the ridge are aligned. We're bringing the flow in from a northwesterly to westerly direction. So a lot cooler and a lot more unsettled, particularly in comparison to what the JMA is signaling. However, week 4, which is the 30th of September through to 6th of October, all change again. And then we build a ridge over Scandinavia and extend it down in towards the North Sea. So that will be turning the winds around to the east, I would have thought. And a lot of dry weather potentially coming through with that. Now in October, easters are not going to be overly warm. They're probably going to be quite chilly at night. But by day, they could be reasonably warm. Just depends whether we drag in a lot of cloud, which you can tend to do. In October, it's suddenly getting weaker, so it has got the strength to burn off the low cloud. But that's very different to what the JMA is doing for that week 3 and week 4 period. Temperature anomalies for the next week are warmer than average from the 9th through to 15th of September in those red colours, so both bodies in agreement with that one. 16th through 22nd of September comes out about average with the temperature, maybe still ever so slightly above average, but it's about average with the temperatures there. I think that's in agreement again with the JMA, although perhaps a little bit cooler compared to the Japanese. 23rd, 29th of September, average, maybe hinting at being a little bit cooler than average through that final week of September. So that's a change on what the JMA is doing. Week 4, 30th of September through to 6th of October. That one is average to slightly above average with the temperatures. And then the precipitation anomalies for coming week generally is wetter than average, particularly so for the north and west. But I think most parts of the country coming out a bit wetter than average there. Week 2, average to slightly wetter than average, especially to the northern side of the country. Week 3, 23rd to 29th of September. Now, this is when the JMA is turning things much drier. CFS actually has things a bit wetter than average there through that final week of September. And then week 4, which is the 30th of September through to 6th of October, that one comes out about average. I think it's losing the signal, and I would have thought with high pressure over Scandinavia, such as model is indicating through that first week of October, probably would be a bit drier than average. Now, we've got agreement for the next week. It looks warm for the next week and quite unsettled, especially to the north and west. I'm not sure it's going to be that unsettled down in the south and the east, but probably more unsettled than we've been used to. Week 2, we've got a bit of a disagreement between the JMA and the CFS V2 there. And then weeks 3 and 4, big disagreements in terms of what's happening towards the end of September and the start of October. I think the overall message is probably still turning a bit cooler into the second half of September and probably a bit more unsettled as well. The extent of that change to cooler, more unsettled conditions is very uncertain, especially for the south and the east of the country. As we get through to October, it really is very speculative. I'm not sure either model really has that sorted out for the end of September and into the start of October. We'll continue to monitor. As ever, long-range forecasting is highly experimental. These models are not to be relied upon. Their charts are there, so I might as well use them. It's heads up of what they're showing, but don't take it all that seriously. Later on, I'm going to have a verification for the summer 2016 forecast. We'll see how that went and close the door on summer 2016. So come back to that later on. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.